Man, where do I even start? My life's gone to shit in the blink of an eye. One minute I'm busting my ass to provide for my family, the next I'm wondering if I ever really knew the woman I married. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and paint you a picture of how it all went down. I'm a bartender, have been for years now. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most of the time. I work nights, usually clocking out between midnight and 2 a.m. My wife, let's call her Sarah, she's got a cushy 9 to 5 gig. Well, 6 to 2 p.m. to be exact. You'd think with schedules like that, we'd be ships passing in the night. And yeah, sometimes it feels that way. Our routine? It's a bit of a circus act. I'm up with the kids in the morning getting them fed and off to school. Then I catch some Z's before my shift starts. Sarah takes over when she gets home, handling dinner and bedtime. On paper, it works. In reality, it's a whole other story. Here's the kicker. When Sarah's off work, I bend over backwards to make sure she gets her me time. Want to grab drinks with the girls? Go for it. Need a spa day? Be my guest. Hell, I'll even watch the Rugrats so she can binge Netflix in peace. I figure everyone needs to decompress, right? But when the shoe's on the other foot, Christ, you'd think I was asking to rob a bank or something. Take last Tuesday. I just finished a brutal shift. Some jackass decided to start a brawl over a spilled beer. By the time we got it sorted, I felt like I'd gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. All I wanted was to grab a cold one with my coworkers and unwind. I texted Sarah, "Rough night, grabbing a quick drink with the crew, be home in an hour." Her response? A barrage of texts that would make a sailor blush. "Why can't you just come home? Don't you care about your family?" If you loved us, you'd be here. On and on it went. By the time I got home, she was in full meltdown mode. The kids were asleep, thank God, but Sarah, she was waiting up, ready to tear me a new one. "You smell like booze," she spat as soon as I walked in. I sighed. "I told you, I had a drink with your precious coworkers." "Yeah, I heard. What about me, huh? What about the kids?" I tried to keep my cool. "Sarah, come on, it was one drink. I'm home now, aren't I?" But there was no reasoning with her. She ranted for a good hour about how I was never there, how I was choosing the bar over my family. Never mind that I'm the one bringing home the bacon. Never mind that I give her free rein whenever she wants a night out. It's always the same song and dance. If I'm not working or sleeping, I better be at home. Doesn't matter if I'm burnt out, stressed, or just need some adult conversation that doesn't revolve around diapers and PTA meetings. Nope. In Sarah's world, I should be content with work and home. Nothing in between. Don't get me wrong, I love my kids. They're the reason I put up with entitled drunks and handsy bachelorette parties night after night. But a man needs balance, you know? I've tried explaining this to Sarah. I've pointed out how I never complain when she goes out. Hell, I encourage it. But it's like talking to a brick wall. In her mind, she deserves time off because she's with the kids all day. Never mind that I'm the one getting up at the crack of dawn to get them ready for school. Never mind that I'm the one working till the wee hours to keep a roof over our heads. It's not like I'm out partying every night. We're talking once, maybe twice a week I'll grab a drink after work. And I'm always home before 3 a.m. Always. I'm there to kiss the kids goodnight on my days off. I'm there for soccer games and dance recitals. But apparently, that's not enough for Sarah. A couple months back, things came to a head. We were having one of our usual arguments about my late nights. I just worked a double shift and was dead on my feet. All I wanted was a shower and some sleep. Instead, I got Sarah in full battle mode. "I've had enough," she declared, hands on her hips. "This ends now." I rubbed my eyes, too tired for this shit. "What ends, Sarah?" "Your little after-work parties. From now on, you come straight home after your shift. No exceptions." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all just hit me. "You can't be serious." Her eyes narrowed. "I'm dead serious. Either you start acting like a proper husband and father or I'm out. I'll take the kids and leave." That sobered me up real quick. "Whoa, hold on. You're giving me an ultimatum? Over a couple of beers with my coworkers?" "It's not about the beers," she shouted. "It's about priorities. Your priority should be your family, not your bar buddies." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. Sarah, my priority is my family. Why do you think I work these god-awful hours? It's not for my health, I can tell you that. But she wasn't having it. In her mind, if I wasn't home, I didn't care. End of story. I tried to reason with her. Look, we both need our downtime. I never say a word when you go out with your friends. Hell, I encourage it. Why can't you do the same for me? That's different, she sniffed. I'm with the kids all day. I need a break sometimes. And I don't? I shot back. You think dealing with drunk idiots all night is a picnic? Round and round we went. In the end, I agreed to cut back on my after-work drinks. Not because I thought she was right, but because I was too damn tired to keep arguing. But here's the thing. It didn't make a lick of difference. I started coming straight home after my shifts. And you know what? Sarah still found reasons to bitch. If it wasn't my hours, it was the way I loaded the dishwasher. If it wasn't that, it was how I folded the laundry. It was like living with a time bomb. I never knew what was going to set her off next. And the worst part? The more I gave in, the more she pushed. I started to feel like I was suffocating. My whole life had become work and home, work and home. No time to decompress, no time to just be me. I love my family, don't get me wrong. But a man needs more than that. He needs friends, hobbies, a life outside the four walls of his house. But try telling that to Sarah. In her mind, wanting any kind of life beyond work and family made me a bad husband and father. Never mind that I was killing myself to provide for them. Never mind that I was always there when it counted. I started to wonder where the woman I married had gone. The Sarah I fell in love with was fun, independent. She understood the value of personal space. This new Sarah? She was clingy, demanding, always on my case about something. I knew things couldn't go on like this. Something had to give. I just never imagined it would be my entire world crumbling around me. You know what really gets me? It's not just the constant nagging or the lack of freedom. It's the money situation. Christ, sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in bills. I'm not gonna lie, bartending isn't exactly making me rich, but I manage to keep us afloat. Rent, utilities, groceries, I cover it all. It's tight, sure, but we make it work. Or at least we used to. Lately, Sarah's been on this kick about needing more. More clothes, more toys for the kids, more fancy dinners out. It's like she's living in some alternate reality where money grows on trees. Just last week, she hit me with this bombshell. We should take the kids to Disney World this summer. I nearly choked on my coffee. Disney World? Are you kidding me? She looked at me like I'd just suggested we send the kids to work in a coal mine. What? Don't you want our children to have happy memories? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Of course I do, Sarah. But Disney World? Do you have any idea how much that costs? She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, we'll figure it out. Maybe you could pick up some extra shifts. Extra shifts. Right. Because I'm not already working my ass off 6 nights a week. But that's Sarah for you. In her mind, money's no object. She wants something, I should just magically make it happen. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to give my kids the world. But I'm also trying to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Somehow that seems to slip Sarah's mind when she's planning these grand adventures. And it's not just the big stuff. It's all the little things that add up. New shoes every other month because the ones she has are so last season. Fancy organic groceries that cost 3 times as much as regular food. A gym membership she uses maybe once a month, if that. I try to talk to her about budgeting, about setting aside money for emergencies, but it's like talking to a wall. She just doesn't get it, or maybe she doesn't want to get it. We only live once, she'll say. We should enjoy life while we can. Easy for her to say. She's not the one stressing about how to stretch every paycheck to cover the bills. And here's the kicker. She's always going on about how we need a bigger house. Says the kids need more space, that we're outgrowing our current place. Never mind that we can barely afford the rent as it is. I've tried explaining to her that buying a house isn't just about coming up with a down payment. There's property taxes, maintenance, all sorts of hidden costs. But does she listen? Nah. In her mind, if we can't afford a house, it's because I'm not trying hard enough. It's gotten to the point where I dread payday. Not because I don't want the money, But because I know as soon as that check hits our account, Sarah's got a million ways to spend it. And God forbid I suggest we put some aside for savings. You'd think I was asking her to give up a kidney or something. The other day I came home to find a brand new 65-inch TV in our living room. "What the hell is this?" I asked, already feeling a headache coming on. Sarah beamed at me like she'd just cured cancer. "Isn't it great? It was on sale!" I rubbed my temples, trying to stay calm. "Sarah, we can't afford this. We're already behind on the electric bill." Her smile faltered for a second, then came back full force. "Oh, don't worry about that. I'll return some of those shoes I bought last month. It'll be fine." And that's how it always goes. She splurges on something we don't need, then acts like it's no big deal to shuffle things around to make it work. Meanwhile, I'm left scrambling to figure out how to keep the lights on. I've tried to get her to contribute more financially. I mean, she works too, right? But apparently her paycheck is for her things, whatever the hell that means. So I'm left carrying the bulk of our expenses on my bartender's salary. It's not like I'm asking for much, just a little help, a little understanding of our financial situation. But nope. In Sarah's world, money problems are my problems. She just gets to reap the benefits. And you know what really kills me? She has the nerve to complain about how we never go on vacation, how we can't afford nice things, as if I'm purposely holding us back. Like I'm sitting on some secret stash of cash I'm just too stingy to use. I've tried to get her to see a financial advisor with me. Thought maybe if she heard it from a professional, it might sink in. But she refused. Said we didn't need someone telling us how to spend our money. Our money? Ha! More like my money. It's gotten to the point where I'm considering a second job. Not that I have any free time as it is, but something's gotta give. I can't keep living paycheck to paycheck while Sarah acts like we're the Rockefellers. But here's the real kicker. Remember that ultimatum she gave me? The one about coming straight home after work or else? Well, turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg. A few weeks back, she dropped this bomb on me. "I think you should look for a day job." I stared at her, sure I must have misheard. "A day job? What are you talking about?" She crossed her arms, giving me that look that says she's made up her mind and to hell with what I think. "You heard me, a normal 9-to-5 job, something that lets you be home in the evenings with me and the kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sarah, I've been bartending for years. It's what I know. It's how I support this family." She snorted. "Support? Please. We're barely getting by. A real job would pay better." A real job. Like what I do isn't real work. Like I'm out there playing instead of busting my ass to keep a roof over our heads. I tried to reason with her. "Honey, switching careers isn't that simple. And even if I could find a day job, the pay would probably be less, at least at first. We can't afford that right now." But she wasn't having it. "Figure it out," she snapped. "Either you find a normal job and start acting like a proper husband and father, or I'm taking the kids and leaving." And there it was. The ultimatum to end all ultimatums. My whole world turned upside down because Sarah decided she didn't like my work hours. I was floored. Shocked, angry as hell. Who was this woman, and what had she done with my wife? "You'd break up our family over this?" I asked, hardly believing the words coming out of my mouth. She jutted out her chin, defiant. "If that's what it takes to get you to see sense, yes." I didn't know what to say. How do you respond to something like that? It was like she'd taken everything I'd done for our family, all the long nights, all the missed holidays, all the sacrifice, and thrown it back in my face. So here I am, stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, I've got a job that pays the bills, barely, and that I'm good at. On the other, I've got a wife threatening to walk out if I don't completely upend our lives to suit her whims. And the worst part? I'm starting to wonder if it would be so bad if she did leave. How messed up is that? I love my kids more than anything, but living with Sarah, man. Some days it feels like slow torture. I've tried talking to her, tried to make her see reason, but it's like talking to a brick wall. She's got this picture in her head of what our life should be like, and anything that doesn't fit that picture is wrong. So now I'm left wondering, what the hell do I do? Do I give in? Try to find a day job even though it would probably mean a pay cut we can't afford? Do I stand my ground and risk losing my family? Or is there some middle ground I'm just not seeing? All I know is something's got to give, and soon, because I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. You ever get that feeling in your gut that something's just off? Like you're watching a movie where everything looks normal, but there's this creepy background music that tells you shit's about to hit the fan? That's been my life lately. It started small, Sarah going out more often with her friends. Now, I'm not the jealous type. Hell, I've always encouraged her to have a life outside our family. But this was different. She'd be all secretive about it, like she was planning a surprise party or something. "Where you headed?" I'd ask, trying to keep it casual. "Oh, just meeting the girls," she'd say, not quite meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." And she'd be out the door before I could say another word. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was just enjoying her freedom, you know? But then I started noticing other things. Little things that alone wouldn't mean squat, but together, they painted a picture I didn't want to see. Like how she'd always turn away when texting, or how she'd suddenly hang up the phone when I walked into the room. And don't even get me started on the perfume. Sarah's never been big on fragrances, said they gave her headaches. But lately, she's been smelling like she bathed in the stuff. Then there were the nights she'd come home late. And I'm not talking an hour or two. I'm talking rolling in at 2 a.m. when she said she was just going for dinner with the girls. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited up for her, sitting in the dark like some creep in a bad movie. When she finally stumbled in around 1:30, I flicked on the lights. "Jesus!" she yelped, nearly jumping out of her skin. "What are you doing up?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "Waiting for my wife. Where have you been, Sarah?" She waved her hand dismissively, but I could see she was nervous. "Oh, you know how it is. We got to talking and lost track of time." "Uh-huh," I said, not buying it for a second. "And I suppose that's why you smell like a bar?" Her eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" I sighed, suddenly feeling very, very tired. "I'm not implying anything, Sarah. I'm asking where you've been." "I told you I was out with friends. What, don't you trust me?" And there it was. The trust card. Like I was the bad guy for wondering why my wife was coming home in the middle of the night smelling like booze and cheap cologne. But you know what? I let it go. Told myself I was being paranoid. After all, this was Sarah. My Sarah. The mother of my children. She wouldn't... Right? Wrong. So fucking wrong. It got worse after that. She started finding reasons to leave me with the kids more often. Said she needed me time. Which... Okay, I get it. Parenting is tough. But this wasn't just an afternoon here and there. This was whole weekends where she'd be MIA. "I'm going on a girls' trip," she'd announce out of the blue. "Just for the weekend. You can handle the kids, right?" And before I could even process what was happening, she'd be gone, leaving me with a mountain of questions and 2 confused kids. But here's the kicker. Whenever I'd try to call her on these trips, it'd go straight to voicemail. And when she did pick up, I could hear music in the background, men's voices. Didn't sound like any girls' trip I'd ever heard of. I started paying more attention to her phone habits. Not proud of it, but a man's got his limits, you know? And what I saw, man, it made my stomach turn. She was always on that damn thing, always texting, always scrolling through something. But the moment I'd walk into the room, she'd flip it over faster than you could blink. One time, I managed to catch a glimpse of her screen before she could hide it. It was some dating app. Fucking Tinder or one of those. My wife, the mother of my children, on a goddamn hookup app. I confronted her about it, of course. "What the hell, Sarah? Tinder? Really?" She had the nerve to look offended. "It's not what you think. I'm just curious, seeing what's out there." "What's out there?" I exploded. "You're married! To me, remember?" She rolled her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just for fun. I'm not actually meeting anyone." But I knew. Deep down, I knew that was a lie. You don't get all dolled up, perfumed to high heaven, just to swipe through some app for fun. And then there were the mysterious charges on our credit card. Hotel rooms, expensive restaurants I'd never heard of. When I asked her about it, she'd always have some excuse. "Oh, that hotel charge? That was for Jenny's bachelorette party. I forgot to tell you about it. The restaurant? That was a work thing. The company card wasn't working, so I had to use ours. They'll reimburse me. Always an excuse, always a lie. And me? I was starting to feel like the world's biggest chump. I tried talking to her about it. Tried to understand what was going on. Was she unhappy? Was there something I could do? But every time I brought it up, she'd shut down or turn it around on me. Maybe if you were home more, I wouldn't need to find ways to entertain myself, she'd snap. Or, if you paid more attention to me instead of your precious bar, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It was always my fault somehow, always something I was or wasn't doing that was forcing her to act this way. I even suggested counseling. Thought maybe if we had a neutral third party, we could work through whatever was going on. But Sarah shot that down faster than a tequila shot on ladies' night. We don't need some stranger poking around in our business, she said. We're fine. Fine, right. Because it's totally fine for a married woman to be on dating apps and disappearing for days at a time. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd jump, wondering if it was Sarah canceling some plans or making up another excuse for why she wouldn't be home. The kids started to notice something was up. My oldest asked me one day, "Daddy, why is Mommy always gone?" Christ, that broke my heart. What was I supposed to say? Well, sweetie, I think Mommy might be out screwing some other guy because Daddy's not good enough anymore. I tried to shield them from it as best I could. Told them Mommy was just busy with work stuff. But kids, man, they're smarter than we give them credit for. They knew something wasn't right. And through it all, Sarah just kept on like nothing was wrong. She'd come home from one of her trips, kiss the kids goodnight, then crawl into bed next to me like she hadn't just spent the weekend God knows where doing God knows what. I was losing my mind, started drinking more, staying later at the bar even when I wasn't working, anything to avoid going home to that empty house, knowing Sarah was out there living it up while I was stuck playing Mr. Mom. But you know what the worst part was? A small part of me still loved her. Still wanted to believe there was an explanation for all of this that didn't involve her betraying everything we'd built together. I kept telling myself, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe she's going through some kind of midlife crisis. Maybe if I just hang on a little longer, everything will go back to normal. What a fucking idiot, right? But that's love for you. Makes you believe all sorts of crazy shit. Makes you put up with things you never thought you would. Makes you blind to what's right in front of your face. So there I was, stuck in this limbo, knowing in my gut that something was seriously wrong, but not quite ready to face what that might mean, hoping against hope that I was just being paranoid, that there was some logical explanation for all of this. But deep down, I knew. I knew my marriage was circling the drain. I knew Sarah was slipping away from me, and I was powerless to stop it. All I could do was wait and see how it would all play out. Wait for the other shoe to drop. You ever hear the phrase, ignorance is bliss? Well, let me tell you, it's bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. Because when the truth finally hits you, it hits like a freight train. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had the day off, rare for me. I was home with the kids, trying to be super dad, making pancakes, helping with homework, all that good stuff, trying to make up for all the times I couldn't be there because of work. That's when my phone rang. It was Mike, one of my oldest friends. We go way back, like elementary school back. He's the kind of friend who'd give you the shirt off his back, you know? "Hey man," I answered, juggling the phone while flipping pancakes. "What's up?" There was a long pause, so long I thought the call had dropped. "Mike? You there?" "Yeah," he finally said, his voice tight. "Look, buddy, there's something I gotta tell you, and you're not gonna like it." My stomach dropped. I knew. In that moment, before he said another word, I knew. "It's about Sarah," he continued, and I could hear the pain in his voice. She's cheating on you, man." The world stopped. Just stopped. I don't remember dropping the spatula, but I must have because suddenly there was batter all over the floor. "What?" I managed to croak out. Mike took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry, man. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but You needed to know. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. How do you know? And that's when he dropped the real bomb. She's been sharing her location with Jenny and me, he said, referring to his wife. Has been for months. Said it was for safety, you know. But man, the places she's been going... He trailed off, and I could fill in the blanks. Hotels, restaurants, places a married woman has no business being without her husband. But here's the thing, Mike continued. 3 days ago, she called Jenny in a panic. Called her like 32 times. 32? I repeated dumbly. Yeah, she was freaking out, making sure Jenny wouldn't share her location with you. Said she was at the beach, but... But what? I prompted, even though I didn't want to hear it. But her location showed she was at some motel off the highway. For hours. The room was spinning. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why are you telling me this now? I managed to ask. Mike sighed. Because it's not the first time, man, and I couldn't keep it from you anymore. You're my best friend. You deserve to know. I thanked him somehow. Hung up the phone. Then I just sat there staring at nothing while my kids played in the other room, oblivious to the fact that their world was about to implode. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. But eventually, I knew what I had to do. I called my sister, asked her to watch the kids. Didn't tell her why, just said it was an emergency. Then I waited. When Sarah got home that evening, I was sitting in the dark living room waiting for her. Just like all those nights I'd waited up wondering where she was. But this time was different. This time, I knew. She flipped on the light and jumped when she saw me. Jesus, you scared me! What are you doing sitting in the dark? I looked at her, really looked at her, trying to see if I could spot any trace of the woman I married, but all I saw was a stranger. Where were you today? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, just ran some errands. Why? Errands? I repeated. At the beach? She froze for a split second but quickly recovered. Yeah, I decided to catch some sun while I was out. What's with the 3rd degree? I stood up slowly, my hands shaking. Cut the bullshit, Sarah. I know. Her eyes narrowed. Know what? I know about the motel, I said, my voice rising. I know about the 32 calls to Jenny. I know everything. The color drained from her face. For a moment, just a moment, I saw panic in her eyes. Then her expression hardened. You've been spying on me? She hissed. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Spying? That's rich coming from you. No, Sarah, I didn't need to spy. Your guilty conscience did all the work for me. She crossed her arms, defiant. So what if I was at a motel? Maybe I needed some alone time. You're always at that damn bar. Why can't I have some time to myself? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even now, caught red-handed, she was trying to turn this around on me. Alone time? I spat. Is that what we're calling it now? Because last I checked, alone time doesn't involve another man's dick. She flinched at that, but quickly rallied. Oh, like you're so innocent? Always coming home late, smelling like booze and God knows what else? How do I know you haven't been screwing around? I was so angry I could barely see straight. Because unlike you, I actually respect our marriage vows. We went back and forth like that for what felt like hours. Her throwing accusations, me countering them. Her making excuses, me shooting them down. It was exhausting and pointless. Finally, I'd had enough. Who is he? I demanded. She looked away. It doesn't matter. The hell it doesn't, I shouted. You've been fucking some guy behind my back for God knows how long. I think I deserve to know who he is. She shook her head. You don't know him. Try me. She sighed, suddenly looking very tired. His name's Brad. He's a personal trainer at my gym. Of course he was, because apparently my life had turned into some kind of cliché romantic comedy, except there was nothing funny about it. How long? I asked, dreading the answer. She shrugged. A few months. A few months. While I was busting my ass at the bar, while I was taking care of our kids, she'd been screwing some meathead for months. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why, Sarah? Wasn't I good enough? Didn't I give you everything? And that's when she said it, the words that would haunt me for months to come. You weren't there, she said, her voice cold. You were always at that bar, always putting work first. I needed someone who would put me first. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Put you first? Everything I do for this family, for you and the kids. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You love that bar more than you love me, more than you love our children. That was it, the final straw. I could take her cheating, her lies, her excuses, but to accuse me of not loving our kids? That was too far. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. She blinked, surprised. What? You heard me. Get out. Pack your shit and leave. Now. She started to argue, but something in my face must have scared her because she shut up real quick. She went upstairs, packed a bag, and left without another word. And just like that, my marriage was over. 15 years, 2 kids, countless memories, all gone in the blink of an eye. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. What the hell was I going to tell the kids? How was I supposed to explain that mommy wasn't coming home because she'd rather fuck some gym rat than be with her family? I felt lost, angry, betrayed. But most of all, I felt like a fool. All those nights I'd spent worrying about her, all those times I'd defended her to my friends who thought she was acting shady. And this is how she repaid me. As I sat there in our suddenly too quiet house, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I had a long, messy road ahead of me. Divorce, custody battles, trying to explain to our kids why their family was falling apart. But you know what? In that moment, as painful as it was, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Free. Free from the constant suspicion, the endless arguments, the feeling that I was never good enough. It wasn't the way I wanted things to end. But maybe, just maybe, it was for the best. Because living with a cheater? That's no way to live at all. You know what's worse than finding out your wife's been cheating on you? Having her sit there and tell you it's all your fault. But that's exactly what happened. It was a few days after I'd kicked Sarah out. The kids were at school, and I'd taken the day off work. Sarah had called, said we needed to talk. Part of me wanted to tell her to go to hell, but I knew we had to figure this shit out. For the kids, if nothing else. She showed up looking like she owned the place. Hair done, makeup perfect, not a care in the world. It made my blood boil. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 strangers who used to share a life. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. All right, Sarah, you wanted to talk. So talk. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Fine. Let's talk about how you drove me to this. I nearly choked on my coffee. Excuse me, I drove you to cheat? She nodded, her face set in a hard line. That's right. You and your precious bar, always working, always putting everything else before me. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Oh, I don't know. Maybe talk to your husband instead of spreading your legs for the first guy who paid you a compliment? She rolled her eyes. Please, like you ever listened. I tried talking to you, remember? All those times I asked you to work less, to be home more, but you never listened. I was working to support our family, I shouted, my temper rising. To give you and the kids everything you wanted. Everything except your time, she shot back. Your attention, your love. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. My love? Are you kidding me? Everything I did for you and the kids? How dare you say I didn't love you? She leaned forward, her eyes cold. Love isn't just about providing, you know. It's about being there, and you were never there. So that justifies cheating? I asked, incredulous. She shrugged. Maybe not, but it explains it. Brad was there for me in ways you never were. He listened. He cared. He made me feel alive again. Each word was like a knife to my gut. And I didn't make you feel alive? 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, and I didn't make you feel alive? Not for a long time, she said, her voice flat. You stopped seeing me as a woman years ago. I became just a wife, just a mother. Brad reminded me that I'm more than that. I stood up abruptly, unable to sit still any longer. So let me get this straight. You felt unfulfilled, so instead of working on our marriage, you decided to fuck some meathead from the gym? She didn't even flinch at my crude words. Yes, and you know what? I don't regret it. Not one bit. Brad gave me something you couldn't, or wouldn't. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And what about our kids, Sarah? Did you think about them when you were screwing around? For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? But it was gone as quickly as it came. The kids will be fine, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Lots of kids have divorced parents. They'll adjust. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This cold, unfeeling woman in front of me. Who was she? What had happened to the woman I married? So that's it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 15 years of marriage just over? She stood up, grabbing her purse. It's been over for a long time, we just didn't want to admit it. Brad just opened my eyes to what I've been missing. As she walked to the door, she turned back one last time. You know, you should be thanking me. I've set you free too. Now you can spend all the time you want at that bar without feeling guilty. And with that, she was gone, leaving me standing in our kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage, wondering how the hell we'd gotten here. I sank into a chair, my head in my hands. How had everything gone so wrong? How had the woman I loved, the mother of my children, turned into this cold, uncaring stranger? But as I sat there, surrounded by the ruins of my marriage, I realized something. Maybe this was for the best. Because the woman who just walked out that door, that wasn't my Sarah. That wasn't the woman I fell in love with. And maybe, just maybe, I was better off without her. All right, here's the final part in about 1,500 words, continuing from the previous scene. You ever feel like you're living in some kind of twisted nightmare? Like any second you're gonna wake up and everything will be back to normal? Yeah, that's where I was at. After Sarah left, I just sat there, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. My wife, the mother of my kids, had basically told me our entire marriage was a sham, that I'd driven her to cheat, that she didn't regret a damn thing. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. But eventually I realized I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there feeling sorry for myself. I had kids to think about. So I did what any rational, mature adult would do. I got completely shit-faced. I'm not proud of it, but I raided our liquor cabinet and drank until I couldn't feel anymore. Until Sarah's words stopped echoing in my head. Until the image of her with that gym rat faded away. When I woke up the next morning, face down on the couch with the mother of all hangovers, reality came crashing back. And let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. I had about 1 million missed calls and texts, some from work, wondering where the hell I was, some from my sister asking if I was okay, and a few from Sarah probably gloating about how she'd set me free or some bullshit. I ignored them all and focused on not puking my guts out. Once I felt somewhat human again, I knew I had to face facts. My marriage was over. My wife had cheated and didn't give a rat's ass about it. And I had 2 kids who were going to be home from school soon, wondering why mommy wasn't there. Christ, how was I going to explain this to them? I spent the rest of the day cleaning up, trying to make the house look less like a bomb had gone off in it. All the while my mind was racing. What now? Where do we go from here? When the kids got home, I sat them down and tried to explain things as best I could. I didn't go into details, obviously, just told them that mommy and daddy were having some problems and needed some time apart. My daughter, bless her heart, asked if it was her fault, if she'd been bad and that's why mommy left. I damn near lost it right then and there. Told her no, of course not. It had nothing to do with her or her brother. This was grown-up stuff. They cried, of course. Asked when mommy was coming back. I didn't have the heart to tell them she might not be coming back at all. That night, after I'd put them to bed, I finally worked up the courage to check my messages. Most of them were what I expected, people wondering where I was, if I was okay, but there was one from Sarah that made my blood boil. I'm coming by tomorrow to pick up some things. Hope you've calmed down by then. We need to discuss custody arrangements. Custody arrangements. Like this was just some business transaction. Like she hadn't just blown up our entire lives. I didn't sleep much that night. kept replaying our conversation in my head, kept wondering if there was any truth to what she'd said. Had I really been that absent, that neglectful? But then I'd remember the cold look in her eyes as she told me she didn't regret cheating, the dismissive way she talked about our kids, and any doubts I had would vanish. The next day, Sarah showed up right on schedule. She waltzed in like she owned the place, barely even acknowledging me. "I'll just grab a few things," she said, heading for our bedroom. Our former bedroom, I guess. I followed her, not trusting her to be alone in there. "So that's it? You're just gonna grab your stuff and go?" She turned to me, eyebrow raised. "What did you expect? Some big dramatic scene? Sorry to disappoint, but I've said everything I needed to say." I couldn't believe how cold she was being. This woman, who I'd loved for 15 years, who I'd built a life with. She was acting like I was some stranger she'd bumped into on the street. "And what about the kids?" I asked. "You gonna tell them why Mommy left? Why she decided some gym rat was more important than her family?" For a second, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Pain, regret, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "The kids will be fine," she said, turning back to her packing. "We'll figure out a custody arrangement. They'll adjust." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Adjust? To what? To their mother abandoning them for some fling? She whirled on me, eyes flashing. "It wasn't a fling. Brad and I love each other. He understands me in a way you never did." "Oh, spare me!" I spat. "You've known the guy for what, 6 months? And you're throwing away 15 years of marriage for him?" She zipped up her bag, turning to face me. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing happiness. Something you never seemed to care about." I felt like I'd been slapped. "I never cared about your happiness. Everything I did was for you and the kids." "No," she said, her voice cold. "Everything you did was for you. So you could feel like the big man, the provider. But you never stopped to ask what I needed, what I wanted." I was so angry I could barely see straight. "And what you needed was to fuck some other guy? That's what was missing from our marriage?" She shouldered her bag, heading for the door. "What was missing was passion, excitement. Brad gives me that. You haven't in years." As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce and custody arrangements. Try not to make this harder than it needs to be." And with that, she was gone. Again, leaving me standing there, feeling like my whole world had just imploded. Again. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the door she'd just walked out of. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. But eventually I snapped out of it. I had to get my shit together. For the kids, if nothing else. They were gonna need me now more than ever. So I did what I had to do. I called a lawyer, started the divorce proceedings, worked out a temporary custody arrangement, all the while feeling like I was moving through some kind of fog. The next few weeks were a blur, trying to keep things normal for the kids, fielding questions from friends and family, dealing with the pitying looks and whispered conversations that stopped as soon as I walked into a room. Sarah, meanwhile, seemed to be living her best life. Facebook posts of her and Brad at fancy restaurants, at the beach, at some concert. Always with that big fake smile plastered on her face. It made me sick to my stomach. But you know what? It also made me angry. And that anger, it fueled me. I threw myself into being the best damn dad I could be. I cut back on my hours at the bar, started spending more time with the kids. We had movie nights, game nights, went on little adventures around town. And you know what? It was good. Really good. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was really connecting with my kids. Like I was really present in their lives. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There were still nights when I'd lie awake, wondering where it all went wrong. Days when the sight of happy couples made me want to punch something. But slowly, day by day, it got easier. The pain didn't go away completely, but it dulled, became more manageable. And now I'm here. Single dad, ex-bartender, yeah, I quit that job, needed a fresh start, trying to figure out this new life of mine. It's not easy. Some days are harder than others. But you know what? I'm doing it. I'm surviving. And more than that, I'm starting to see a future for myself, a future that doesn't revolve around Sarah and her bullshit. So that's my story. My wife cheated, blamed me for it, and walked out on our family. But I'm still standing, still fighting. And to anyone out there going through something similar, all I can say is this: it gets better. It might not feel like it now, but it does. You're stronger than you think. You'll survive this. But here's what I want to know. What would you do if you were in my shoes? How do you move on from something like this? How do you trust again? How do you explain to your kids that their mother chose some random guy over them? I don't have all the answers. Hell, some days I feel like I don't have any answers. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now.